The December snow fell like judgment on Ethan Cooper's shoulders as he stood in the driveway, his father's words still burning in his ears. "No son of mine will be a goddamn fairy. You're dead to me." The garage door that had hidden his secret now framed his exile. The space where moments before he'd been caught with Marcus Williams' rival school quarterback. Forbidden friend. First love. 16-year-old Ethan clutched a hastily packed bag containing all Bob Cooper had allowed him to take from the only home he'd ever known in Millbrook, Ohio. His breath formed clouds that disappeared too quickly in the winter air, much like the family he thought would protect him. Inside that middle-class house with its peeling American flag sticker, his mother Patricia stood frozen between her Baptist teachings and the memory of her brother Michael, who had taken his own life at 17, a gay boy in a world that showed no mercy. Dylan, Ethan's older brother and the family's golden child, watched from the window. The star quarterback bound for Ohio State on scholarship knew the truth but chose silence, his cowardice wrapped in self-preservation. And 10-year-old Tyler, confused and frightened, witnessed it all with wide eyes that would one day understand too well what it meant to be different in the Cooper family. That night, as the temperature dropped below freezing, Ethan walked until his feet burned with cold, his artistic hands the ones that sketched buildings, while other boys threw footballs, turning red then numb. Each step took him further from everything he knew, but toward a future he couldn't yet imagine. The next 2 years became a brutal education in survival. Homeless shelters in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Dayton offered temporary refuge but little dignity. The system designed to protect children like him was overcrowded and indifferent. Fast food jobs and retail positions barely covered meals. While the temptation of survival sex lurked in dark corners he managed to avoid. Between shifts, Ethan studied in 24-hour diners with free refills. He completed his GED, the pages sometimes marked with tears he refused to acknowledge. Public libraries became sanctuaries where a kind-hearted librarian named Mrs. Chen sometimes looked the other way when she found him asleep among the architecture books. Those books became his escape. While his body carried the scars of self-harm hidden beneath long sleeves, his mind built worlds where beauty and function coexisted, where rejected boys like him could create spaces that welcomed everyone. His sketchbook filled with impossible buildings, structures that defied gravity but honored humanity. Depression wrapped around him like a familiar coat, thoughts of ending everything visiting on the coldest nights. Yet something kept him drawing, kept him breathing the stubborn belief that somewhere, a different kind of family waited. Have Ethan's struggles touched something in you? Follow Heart Stories for more tales of resilience that remind us how the most beautiful structures often rise from the most damaged foundations. The Lincoln Park Diner gleamed with upscale pretension, a stark contrast to the homeless shelters Ethan Cooper had known. At 18, he moved through the space with practiced invisibility, bussing tables with mechanical precision while carrying architectural dreams in his pocket, sketches on napkins, receipts, anything he could find. Chicago's skyline had become both his tormentor and savior, a constant reminder of what he might never achieve yet couldn't stop pursuing. William Bill Anderson noticed the sketchbook first. The renowned architect, now 68 and widowed for 5 years, watched silently as Ethan's pencil captured the Monadnock building during a hasty break. His eyes, weathered by decades of evaluating lines and angles, recognized something beyond mere talent. He saw the desperate precision of someone drawing not just buildings, but escape routes. "You understand load-bearing walls," Bill commented, startling Ethan, who quickly closed his sketchbook. "Most amateurs focus on facades, but you see the skeleton." The connection didn't come easily. Bill offered room and board in exchange for helping organize his archive, but the brownstone in Old Town became a battlefield of silence. Ethan moved through the space like a ghost, expecting rejection at every turn. Bill, haunted by his own ghosts, approached with awkward formality that masked deeper wounds. What neither spoke of hung between them. Bill's son David had died by suicide at 22 when his father rejected his homosexuality. The Navy veteran who had participated in Don't Ask, Don't Tell persecutions carried the weight of his hypocrisy in the creak of his aging knees, in the bourbon he poured each night, in the photographs he couldn't bear to take down. The Archives project exposed more than architectural drawings. Sifting through decades of Bill's work, Ethan discovered the evolution of not just design philosophy, but moral consciousness. The prestigious housing projects Bill had designed revealed a man who had once believed spaces could heal what society broke until his own son shattered under the weight of his rejection. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. 1 year into their arrangement, Ethan discovered David's suicide note tucked between blueprints. The words, "I could never build high enough to see over your disappointment," unleashed something primal in him. He confronted Bill that night, hurling the note onto the dinner table. "Is that what I am to you? A replacement? Another gay son you can save to make up for the one you let die?" Bill's composure cracked, revealing not a renowned architect but a broken father. "No, heck," he whispered, voice thick with guilt. "You're my penance, but also my teacher, because every day you choose to live reminds me what courage actually looks like." Something shifted that night. The honesty cleared space for a different kind of relationship, not father and son as ugly, but mentor and protege. Two damaged souls building something neither could create alone. Bill introduced Ethan to his network, opening doors to community college classes and eventually a scholarship to the University of Illinois, Chicago. Through architecture, Ethan began reconstructing himself. His designs reflected his journey spaces that embraced vulnerability as strength, buildings that sheltered without confining. Bill watched with a mixture of pride and regret, recognizing the brilliance he was helping cultivate. Romance came in the form of Marcus Rodriguez, a high school teacher and undocumented dreamer whose gentle persistence broke through Ethan's defensive walls. Their relationship flourished in the safety of Bill's acceptance, teaching Ethan that intimacy didn't always precede abandonment. When Marcus received a teaching opportunity in California, Ethan's fear of risking stability for love led to their painful separation. Professionally, Ethan thrived. An internship at Skidmore. Owings and Merrill opened doors while side projects designing community centers for LGBTQ+ organizations brought meaning. Throughout this growth, his friendship with Zoe Williams, a biracial interior designer whose pragmatism balanced his idealism, became the foundation for future collaboration. 5 years into their relationship, Bill revealed his darkest truth, his active participation in persecuting gay sailors during his military service. The confession shattered Ethan's perception of his mentor, driving him temporarily from the brownstone. It wasn't until Bill's cancer diagnosis that reconciliation became urgent. "People can change," Bill whispered during a chemotherapy session, his hand trembling in Ethan's. "But change doesn't erase what came before. I need you to know both versions of me." Ethan learned then that forgiveness wasn't about erasing past wounds, but building around them, incorporating them into the foundation of something new, just as the most enduring structures acknowledge the terrain they rise from rather than fighting against it. The Architectural Digest feature called Anderson and Cooper, the most compassionate firm reshaping American urban landscapes. The photograph showed Ethan Cooper, 32, standing confidently beside models of their award-winning Bronzeville housing complex. What the glossy spread couldn't capture was how he had arrived here, the homeless shelters, the diner busboy shifts, the nights spent studying under library fluorescents, or how Bill Anderson, now frail but still commanding respect at 75, had transformed from mentor to partner, from savior to friend. Their 5-year-old firm had become the unexpected darling of socially conscious architecture. Their innovative approach, community input-driven design, resident advisory boards with veto power challenged industry norms. Projects in Detroit, Milwaukee, and Cleveland bore their signature spaces that didn't just house people, but healed communities. Architecture doesn't just reflect society, it shapes it, Ethan explained during his viral TED Talk. The question isn't whether a building can stand, it's who feels welcome to stand within it. The audience erupted in applause, unaware that these weren't just professional philosophies, but personal reckonings. Behind the public success, Ethan's private life had found its own unexpected stability. Marcus Rodriguez had returned from California, now documented in tenure track at Northwestern. Their relationship resumed with the caution of those who understood that love required maintenance as rigorous as any structure. Together, they occupied the third floor of Bill's brownstone, creating a found family that filled the space with debates, laughter, and late-night design sessions where Zoe Williams, Ethan's closest friend and business partner, often joined them. It was Zoe who first noticed Bill's decline. The misplaced keys, the repeated stories, the occasional confusion during client meetings. Ethan dismissed the signs initially, attributing them to age and exhaustion. But the diagnosis was undeniable: Alzheimer's, advancing with the steady inevitability of gravity. "I don't want to be remembered this way," Bill confessed one evening, his architect's hands trembling over blueprints he could no longer interpret. A man who forgets his own designs. As Bill's condition deteriorated, Ethan's priorities shifted. Board meetings were rescheduled around doctor's appointments, site visits abbreviated to accommodate care arrangements. The firm suffered as Ethan redirected resources toward in-home care, burning through savings to postpone the institutional solution they all dreaded. Through this decline came unexpected revelations. In his lucid moments, Bill shared stories he'd never dared tell about David's boyfriend Peter, about his military service, about the crushing weight of societal expectations that had driven him to reject his own son. These confessions weren't just unburdening, they were blueprints Ethan needed to understand the structure of Bill's regret. When Ethan located Peter through social media, now a silver-haired professor in Boston, the reunion between the elderly men cracked something open. Peter brought photographs, letters, evidence of a love Bill had forced into hiding. Watching them together, Ethan understood that forgiveness wasn't an event, but a process, built layer by layer like the most complex foundation. In the midst of this emotional reconstruction came an unexpected message on Instagram. "I think we're both his mistakes now." The profile picture showed a teenage face with Bill's stubborn chin and Patricia's gentle eyes. Tyler Cooper, now 18 and identifying as non-binary after their own rejection from the Cooper household. The siblings reconnected cautiously, Tyler visiting Chicago with dyed blue hair and eyes that had seen too much. They shared stories of their father's rage, their mother's silence, their brother Dylan's athletic scholarship that had ended in injury and scandal. Bob and Patricia had divorced in 2030, their marriage collapsing under the weight of emptied bedrooms and unspoken regrets. "He hit you too?" Ethan asked, noticing the familiar defensive posture in Tyler's shoulders. "Not physically," Tyler replied. With Dad, the words hurt worse. Their relationship grew through text messages, video calls, and weekend visits where Tyler absorbed the atmosphere of Bill's brownstone with hungry curiosity. Unlike Ethan, whose talents manifested in precise lines and structural integrity, Tyler's gifts were interpersonal. They understood human blueprints, the invisible architecture of emotion. Bill's final decline came with brutal swiftness in the summer of 2034. As his body surrendered to pneumonia, his mind occasionally resurfaced with startling clarity. During one such moment, he gripped Ethan's hand and whispered, "Build something that outlasts us both. And forgive me for David." The funeral filled Chicago's cultural center with architects, clients, and former students, a testament to professional respect. But the true mourning happened in the brownstone's living room, where Ethan, Marcus, Zoe, Tyler, and Peter formed a circle of grief that transcended biological connection. None were prepared for what followed. The will reading revealed not just the brownstone valued at $2.2 million, but investment accounts holding $28.8 million early stock in Apple, Google, Tesla, and strategic Chicago real estate acquisitions. Bill had lived modestly while quietly building wealth he never discussed. More surprising was the discovery of a scholarship fund Bill had been anonymously funding for LGBTQ+ architecture students. The media seized the story, "Gay architect inherits fortune from mentor." What they missed was the real inheritance, not millions, but a blueprint for redemption that Bill had spent his final years drafting. As Ethan processed this financial transformation, he understood that wealth carried both opportunity and responsibility. The money could build structures. But the real challenge lay in building justice and creating spaces where other rejected children might find the welcome he had once desperately needed. Through grief and inheritance, Ethan learned what Bill had tried to teach him, that the most enduring architecture isn't what we build with concrete and steel, but what we construct with forgiveness, purpose, and the courage to redesign what was broken. The manila envelope arrived on Ethan Cooper's desk at Anderson & Cooper Architects, like a ghost from another life. Inside lay legal letterhead bearing the names of his biological family, Bob Cooper, Dylan Cooper, and Patricia Cooper, collectively filing claim against what the media had widely reported as his $31 million inheritance. His hands trembled slightly, the paper crinkling under his tightening grip. For 17 years, they had maintained silence. Now they appeared, summoned by the scent of money. The family's financial straits were documented in clinical detail by Ethan's attorneys. Bob Cooper faced medical bankruptcy from diabetes complications, having lost the family home in Millbrook. Dylan's restaurant chain had collapsed under $400,000 of debt, compounded by an expensive divorce. Patricia subsisted on an inadequate teaching pension in a cramped rental apartment. The family that had once cast him into December snow now sought shelter under his newfound wealth. Family reconciliation, their legal filing claimed, describing Ethan's abandonment as temporary and suggesting emotional reunion as the true goal. Yet the carefully crafted narrative crumbled under investigation. Private detectives uncovered Dylan's string of failed businesses, Bob's untreated anger issues, the church members orchestrating social media pressure campaigns against the ungrateful son who abandoned his family. Only Tyler remained caught between worlds, torn between siblings, wanting relationship but refusing to participate in the lawsuit. "They're not interested in who you are," Tyler warned during a late-night call. "They want what you have." The media seized the story with predictable divisions. Fox News portrayed a godless gay man denying Christian parents their rightful support. MSNBC depicted brave LGBTQ+ survivor standing against abusive family exploitation. Neither captured the complex emotions churning beneath Ethan's professional exterior as he reviewed Patricia's unsent letters. Discovered by investigators, pages filled with guilt, regret, and silent witness to Bob's escalating control. "I should have protected you." One letter read, "I failed Michael, and then I failed you." The mediation session in Columbus unfolded beneath unseasonably bright October sunshine. The courthouse steps lined with reporters, protesters from both sides waving contradictory signs about family values. Inside the wood-paneled room, the years of separation collapsed into uncomfortable proximity. Bob Cooper sat rigid in an ill-fitting suit, his linebacker frame softened by age but his eyes still sharp with judgment. Dylan avoided direct eye contact, his former athletic confidence replaced by desperate calculation. Patricia looked older than her 55 years, her hands nervously folding tissue paper into smaller and smaller squares. The mediator had barely begun when Bob's controlled facade cracked. "You embarrassed this family," and he growled, leaning across the table. "You threw away everything we gave you." "Gave me," Ethan replied, his voice steady in contrast. "You gave me 10 minutes to pack and before throwing me into a snowstorm at 16. What followed wasn't the rational negotiation anyone had prepared for. Years of suppressed truth erupted Bob's own abusive childhood. Dylan's resentment of Ethan's success after his own athletic career ended in scandal. Patricia's internal war between a religious doctrine and maternal instinct. "You think I don't know about pain?" Dylan shouted, his voice cracking. "My knee blew out senior year at Ohio State. No NFL contract, no endorsements, nothing. Meanwhile, you get famous designing buildings for," he struggled to find the appropriate slur, "people like you." "People like me," Ethan answered quietly. "You mean the homeless? Because that's who I was after you watched Dad throw me out and said nothing." The true revelation came unexpectedly from Patricia, who had remained largely silent until that moment. "I kept every article about you," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Every award, every building. I have a scrapbook hidden in my closet." The confession struck Bob like physical blow. "You what? I was wrong," Patricia continued, looking directly at Ethan for the first time. "I chose wrong. I can't undo that choice, but I won't make it again today." Her unexpected support shattered the family's united front. The legal proceedings concluded with Ethan's inheritance secure, but the emotional architecture of the confrontation proved more complex than victory or defeat. Dylan cut all contact, retreating into bitterness. Bob remained stubbornly unrepentant, returning to Millbrook to nurture his grievances. But Patricia began the slow, painful process of rebuilding relationship with both Ethan and Tyler, her late-life growth surprising even herself. The lawsuit aftermath coincided with another crisis: accusations that Ethan's affordable housing project in Detroit was displacing historically black neighborhoods. "Rich gay white architect vs. historic black community," read one particularly stinging headline. The complexity of urban planning versus community preservation forced him to confront his own blind spots, to recognize that good intentions don't guarantee just outcomes. This professional challenge strained his partnership with Zoe, who had long felt overshadowed by Ethan's growing celebrity. People see your face on magazine covers and assume this is the Ethan Cooper show with supporting cast. She confronted him during a particularly tense meeting. "I've been beside you since community college. I deserve equal recognition." The accusation stung because it contained truth. Bill's inheritance had unconsciously shifted power dynamics, creating imbalance in what had once been an equal partnership. Restructuring the firm became necessary not just legally but philosophically. Zoe would lead their commercial projects while Ethan focused on what increasingly called to him, creating spaces that healed the wounds inflicted by rejection. Through these concurrent storms, family, professional, ethical, Ethan learned that healing wasn't a destination but a continuous process. The abandoned boy from Ohio and the successful architect in Chicago weren't separate identities but connected points on the same journey. The structures he designed reflected this understanding: buildings that acknowledged pain while creating possibility, spaces that transformed trauma into community. Architecture, he explained during a difficult community forum in Detroit, isn't about imposing vision but listening to voices that have been silenced. I'm learning that every day, because I've been that silenced voice. By confronting his past rather than burying it, Ethan discovered that true foundations aren't built on forgetting, but on transforming memory into purpose, using the very wounds that could have destroyed him to instead create shelter for others. The Bill Anderson Center rose from Chicago's South Side like a statement etched in steel and glass, not imposing but inviting. Its curved facade embracing rather than intimidating. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony in 2036, Ethan Cooper stood with quiet dignity, watching as formerly homeless LGBTQ+ youth cut the ceremonial ribbon to their new home. The 45 transitional housing units, 10,000 square foot community space, rooftop gardens, and integrated service centers represented more than just innovative architecture. They embodied a vision of healing through design. Architecture as social justice spaces that heal trauma. Read the mission statement of the Anderson Foundation, established with Bill's inheritance and Ethan's vision. The foundation wasn't content with merely providing shelter. Its revolutionary governance model gave residents veto power over policies, transforming traditional power dynamics between those who design spaces and those who inhabit them. "Buildings reflect who we value," Ethan explained to journalists touring the facility. "For too long, spaces for the marginalized have been designed without their input, treating them as problems to solve rather than humans with wisdom to offer." The Chicago project became the blueprint for national expansion. In Phoenix, the foundation battled restrictive zoning laws to create safe housing for Mormon and evangelical LGBTQ+ youth rejected by religious families. In Nashville, a housing complex with integrated recording studios provided not just shelter, but creative opportunity for queer musicians shut out of the conservative country music industry. In Atlanta, partnership with historically black colleges created living spaces addressing the intersection of racial and LGBTQ+ discrimination. These projects weren't without controversy. Conservative politicians accused the foundation of undermining family values. Community debates sometimes turned heated, but with each successful project, with each transformed life, the resistance weakened against tangible results. Behind the public success, Ethan's personal life had found its own unexpected stability. After years of on and off relationship complicated by careers and past wounds, Marcus Rodriguez proposed during the Nashville project opening. Their wedding was small but meaningful, with Tyler officiating in their signature blue hair and black suit. Patricia attended, her presence representing personal growth that matched the physical structures rising across the country. The foundation's work expanded Ethan's found family. Zoe Williams, despite their business separation, remained his closest friend and design consultant. Peter, once Bill's son's partner and now an honorary uncle, served on the board with passionate advocacy. Tyler completed their social work degree and joined the foundation full-time. Their innate understanding of human connection balancing Ethan's architectural precision. The most ambitious project began in 2040, a full-circle journey back to Millbrook, Ohio. On land that included the foreclosed Cooper family home, Ethan proposed the Cooper Family Reconciliation Center, designed specifically for family therapy around LGBTQ+ rejection and religious reconciliation. The town's reaction was predictably mixed. Protest signs appeared. Fox News sent reporters. But surprisingly, allies emerged from unexpected places, former classmates who had witnessed Ethan's rejection, church members questioning rigid doctrines, families who had lost children to suicide and now sought understanding. The groundbreaking ceremony drew national attention. Tyler delivered the keynote address, their voice steady despite emotion. This center isn't about erasing pain or forcing forgiveness, they explained. It's about creating space where healing becomes possible, where different truths can coexist without destroying each other. Patricia spoke next, offering a public apology that acknowledged both her failure and her journey. "I can't undo what happened," she said, looking directly at Ethan. "But I can stand beside efforts to ensure it doesn't happen to others." As the speeches concluded and attendees mingled, a familiar figure appeared at the perimeter, Bob Cooper. Older now, leaning on a cane, watching from a distance. When he approached Ethan, the crowd quieted, anticipating confrontation. Instead, the two men walked to a private corner for a conversation witnesses described as intense but not hostile. No reconciliation occurred that day, but acknowledgement did the beginning of recognition, if not repair. The Christmas gathering of 2040 found Ethan's chosen family filling Bill's brownstone with laughter and debate. Marcus adjusted holiday decorations with teachers' precision. Tyler entertained everyone with stories from their social work program. Zoe argued passionately about design choices for the next project. Patricia and Peter discussed advocacy strategies for religious communities. Amid this warmth, Ethan retreated momentarily to his office, spreading architectural plans across his desk, the 5-year expansion strategy for the foundation. From homeless teen to national changemaker, his journey had transformed not just his own life, but architecture itself. The profession that once built monuments to wealth and power now increasingly recognized its role in healing collective trauma. On his desk sat a framed sketch, his first architectural drawing made on a napkin during those homeless shelter days. The lines were amateur, the perspective flawed, but the vision was unmistakable. A building where every person belonged, where walls offered protection without imprisonment, where light reached every corner. 5 years later, by 2045, the foundation's impact had become measurable: 200 housing units nationally, 85% resident satisfaction, 12 cities with reformed zoning laws, and architecture schools nationwide adopting curricula focused on trauma-informed design. Ethan and Marcus adopted teenage siblings from foster care, continuing the cycle of found family that had saved Ethan himself. Perhaps the most profound legacy wasn't physical at all, but conceptual, the recognition that architecture could address not just physical needs, but emotional wounds. That buildings could be instruments of justice, that spaces could transform the very pain that had inspired their creation. What spaces have transformed your life? Where have you found shelter when the world rejected you? Share your stories in the comments below. And if Ethan's journey from abandoned teen to visionary architect moved you, follow Heart Stories for more tales of resilience that remind us how our deepest wounds often become our greatest gifts to the world.